Hello there and welcome to CoreTV News on the hour with me, Sabena Izuku. The police authorities have set up election security planning and monitoring units as part of efforts to strengthen the security of election processes. The unit, according to a police statement, is to be headed by a seasoned commissioner in the operations department. The police authorities expect the new formation to, among other, develop framework and strategies for election security. Former Vice President and Chieftain of the All Progressive Congress, Atiku Abubakar, insists that there is no provision for automatic presidential ticket in the party. He argued that those pushing for it are people who are afraid of testing their popularity among party members. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar spoke with journalists on the sidelines of a political meeting in Abuja.
It is not going to be possible. It's not going to be so. I bet you it's not going to be. And even the last, the last convention, only the offices that were not contested were not up for elections. The offices that were contested, elections were held. They took place, and we stayed there. You see that we stayed there throughout the night, until the following day, until the votes were counted and results announced. I have already said that there is nothing like automatic ticket, and those people who are asking for automatic ticket are definitely scared of a contest because they might have been coming from a background or a political background that did not know contest before. And you know, the APC is an amalgamation of a number of political parties that came together, relinquished their identity into APC. So, but APC, as currently constituted, cannot escape an elective, primaries. There has to be. On what basis are you going to say it is automatic? There is no zoning. There is no allocation. And as they do in PDP, there is nothing like that. So on what basis?
Contrary to the provision of the Nigerian electoral law, which stipulates that the election campaign should commence 19 days to the date of polls, major political parties have continued to hold rallies in different parts of the country. On the other hand, the Independent National Electoral Commission has continued to feign ignorance of the infraction, which has precipitated tension in the polity. Olajumoke takes a look at the position of the law in this report.
Section 99, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended stipulates, for the purpose of this act, the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 90 days before polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. This law was designed to ensure that elected office holders who are still in office but with plans to return to office will not fritter away their official time campaigning to be re-elected. The draftsmen of the act were no doubt aware that electioneering campaign in Nigeria is always a big deal, affecting every facet of national life. Once it starts, electioneering campaigns in Nigeria is time-consuming and have the capacity to keep everything else at bay. But there have been disagreements as to what exactly a political campaign is. The largely subjective and varied definitions of political campaigns have been maximally exploited by the politicians.
Sad thing about the entire process is the silence of INEC, who has the constitutional right to punish any offender or even to make a pronouncement asking them to stop the campaign before the whistle is blown. And that silence, portends grave danger to the electoral process in 2015. Because this umpire must be seen to be independent, must be seen to use the sledgehammer in the face of breaches that are being committed all over the place by politicians.
The next general elections in the country have been scheduled for early next year, and the February 14 and 28, 2015 dates set for the general elections. Campaigns are not supposed to start until October. The major political parties, particularly the ruling People's Democratic Party and the opposition All Progressives Congress, have wantonly breached the said provisions of the Electoral Act.
It is actually a sabotage of the law of the land, and it is a way by which our leaders become lawless. I mean, to show to the world that they are really not the kind of leaders that the world over think that they are. They are lawless. They disobey their own laws. Hypocrisy is superlative at the side of the government, and the tendency to be lawless is being displayed by that exhibition of lawlessness.
The law about 90 days, the ban on campaign until 90 days to election is not explicit. For example, that law needs to specify what constitutes a campaign. If I put my name on a poster and say 2015 here I come, will that constitute campaign in the face of the law? So we need to take a second look at that law and spell out in clear details what constitutes a campaign 90 days before election. So somebody will, so if INEC tries to convict somebody now, that person may just say that, look, I am only advertising myself. I have not said I'm contesting for any election.
Electioneering campaigns are limited to a period within which a political party has an opportunity to sell itself or to tell the electorate how far it has met its electoral premises and to canvass for the votes of the electorate. Olajumoke Olatuji, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The spokesman of the Lagos chapter of the People's Democratic Party, Taofiq Ganiyu, has assured that Lagosians will get a free and credible primaries in the course of choosing the party's governorship candidate. The primaries will produce the party's flag bearer in the 2015 governorship election.
Lagosians should be expecting the best material to be their governor from PDP. For us in PDP, we are expecting that the process will be free, fair, and credible enough so that at the end of the day, losers will see themselves as actual losers. The winner will see himself as lucky to have won, and everybody will be able to work together.
Ahead of the 2015 general elections, Nigerian youths have been advised not to allow themselves be used as political thugs by politicians during the electioneering process. A youth group advocates for collective transformation ACT Act said it is time for youths to take up their decisive role in nation building. At the inauguration of the Osun State chapter of the Advocates for Collective Transformation in Osogbo, the state capital, the group says one of its primary aims is to ensure that the best candidates occupy political offices through electoral process.
Come together to make sure that we put the right candidates in government offices, people that will do well by the people, for the people, and will make the necessary change.
If truly, like I keep on saying, the youth are the future of this country, our leaders should please start involving the youth. How do we learn if you're not carried along? If they want delegates for any primaries or any general election, they should please give some quota to the youth so that we start learning how to take over from there.
ACT is also advocating the inclusion of youth in all levels of governance and also support masses-based government. It therefore wants Nigerian leaders to start giving the youths the needed encouragement and training for leadership positions. Now let's take a short break, and when we return, CoreTV News on the Hour continues. Stay with us.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe and watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose, especially when these symptoms are found in persons coming into Nigeria from other West African countries. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water. or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it, don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Good to have you back. The management and students of the Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti say they have no hand in the protest by residents of the Abai Erifun community in the Ekiti state capital, which degenerated into an attack on the convoy of legal luminary Afe Babalola. The rector of the institution, Taiwo Akonde, while reacting to the protests and attack, says it was not his students that protested over poor power supply and subsequently attacked Afe Babalola.
These youths actually, on the instigation of the Landlords Association of Aberifun, initiated the protest. Many of these protesters were not students of the Polytechnic. And to buttress this, when the executive of the students union were alerted, because nobody on campus even knew there was a problem, but when they were alerted and they went near with officials of our Student Affairs Division, they could not recognize any of the protesters, neither could the protesters recognize them.
President of the Student Union of the school, Ajibola Oladapo, says the attack is unwarranted as the students have no reason to protest over the power supply or attack Afe Babalola.
I hereby commiserate with our father, an incomparable icon and pioneer of Ekiti State, Are Afe Babalola, son, on the unfortunate attack on his convoy at Abairifun. It is worthy to know that the management of our institution, which also suffers from the same fate, have been doing all that is humanly possible to provide this basic necessity through the use of several generators on the Polytechnic campus. We deeply appreciate this, and thus we have no cause to complain of lack of power supply or water on the campus, nor go on a demonstration over same.
The protest and attack on Afe Babalola and his university was said to have been a result of poor power supply to Aba Erifu, a neighborhood to Afe Babalola University, while they say the university enjoys uninterrupted power supply. An army court-martial has sentenced 12 soldiers to death for inciting mutiny during the ongoing war against insurgency. The soldiers were said to be ringleaders of the troops who fired at the General Officer Commanding GOC of 7th Division, Major General Abubakar Mohammed, during a mutiny in Maiduguri. 18 soldiers stood trial on a 6-count charge, but 12 were found guilty of mutiny and given the death sentence.
2010 NA of the 656912 Private Chocho Jeremiah for count 6. You are reprimanded. IHL means imprisonment with hard labor. 28 days imprisonment with hard labor. And for count 6, you are reprimanded. And say, warning for you. Sit down. 03 NA of the 53 of the 816 Lance Corporal Stephen Clement. For count 3, you were found guilty and you are therefore sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. But for count 4, mutiny, 2003 NA of the 53 of the 816 Lance Corporal Stephen Clement, you were found guilty for mutiny, therefore sentenced to death by firing squad. These findings and sentences are subject to confirmation. May God have mercy on you.
3 days after a fighter jet on an operation against the Boko Haram disappeared in the northeast, Nigerian Air Force authorities have ruled out sabotage. Chief of Air Staff Adeshola Musu dropped this hint to journalists on the sidelines of a meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan in Abuja. He, however, says the military has a fair idea of the whereabouts of the jet that went missing during an operation against the Boko Haram insurgents.
One of our Alpha jets went on a routine operational mission in the northeast on On the return, the lost contact with the control tower, that made us to immediately initiate search. The weather is not being helpful. The citizens are very helpful. We're getting some good information, but you know, in the aviation, we have specific information that we ought to have to make the search easy. But the information we're getting from the citizens, good, but not sufficient, good enough for us to pinpoint the area of, define the area of search. But we have an idea of where the aircraft could be. Don't forget, it's the open Sahel. It looks, some people may think it's easy, but in the open Sahel, sometimes it's even very challenging. A human being standing may look like a tree. And again, the area we're talking about is we have operations going on there. You have limitations as to how low you can go to conduct the search. But we have the platforms. But I'm hopeful that before the end of the day, before the end of the week, we should be able to provide positive information as to the location and then the pilots. But one thing is clear, that whatever problem they had, an ejection was contemplated. It is my hope that the pilots are still alive.
But sir, do you suspect any sabotage or foul?
Sabotage, no. Because it's a distance of just from Maiduguri to Jola. We're in full control of the airspace. But don't forget, when you lose radio signal becomes challenging. There are so many possibilities, but we're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The African Center for Human Rights and Humanitarian Services has called on the federal government to take tougher actions to arrest the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeastern region of the country. The center says the crisis had led to mass rural-urban migration in the affected states. The body says many of the towns and villages in Borno State have been deserted as insurgents attack and had left many fleeing into Maiduguri with its attendant pressure on available infrastructure. Addressed to journalists in Maiduguri, the chairman of the group, Saina Buba, lamented that the recent happenings in the northeast had aggravated human rights abuses, mass poverty, starvation, breakdown of unity among families, breakdown of law and order, extrajudicial killings, and total displacement of families. Buba wondered why the committee set up by President Goodluck Jonathan had so far collected over 60 billion naira on how to address terror activities in the region had yet not visited Borno State, adding that many families have been uprooted from their homes. The Defense Authority wants Nigerians to show more support for troops engaged in the ongoing war against the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast. Minister of State for Defense Musiliu Obanikoro says at the launch of Support Our Troops Foundation in Abuja that the soldiers deserve appreciation. He maintained that words of solidarity and prayers on the social media would act as morale booster for troops as they confront insurgents in the battlefield.
You say a word of appreciation to our troops today. You can say a word of prayer for them as well. You can help them with information. Your expression of faith in their ability to defeat our common enemy is a morale booster that only you can provide. Those of us active in the media, particularly social media, do not talk down or ridicule the great efforts that our troops are making to protect and defend our country, even at the risk of their lives.
Nigerian Medical Association has accepted the federal government's decision on the September 22nd resumption date for schools across the country. It, however, wants the relevant authorities to step up surveillance at the airport and other points of entry. The Nigerian Medical Association specifically wants attention paid at recent travelers to Ebola endemic countries. The Nigerian Medical Association President Kayode Obembe says, after a meeting with federal government officials, that it was necessary to take proactive steps to ensure that Nigeria keeps Ebola out of its shores. ECOWAS Commission is seeking multilateral support for health facilities and research to check the Ebola virus disease in West Africa. It also wants its international partners to commit funds to Regional Solidarity Fund to fight the disease. President of the Commission, Kadri Urago, made the appeal at the opening of the 10th annual coordination meeting of ECOWAS and its development partners in Abuja. ECOWAS also welcomed the coordinated approach adopted by the World Health Organization, but warned against taking steps that would affect free movement in the region.
The affected countries, because this will be counterproductive, and we should cultivate the spirit of solidarity. We should open the border, but be very cautious in terms of surveillance. And the ministers of health have indeed made the recommendation that we have disseminated to all member states on measures to be taken by every ECOWAS member states in order to control the epidemic, to control the passengers at the exit point and at the entry point to avoid contamination. And also they have proposed the creation of humanitarian corridors, which we are now implementing. That is to open up all affected countries to regular economic trade flow. And we are working with all ECOWAS member states to establish these corridors. That is, for each country, there should be a designated land entry point, air entry point, and maritime entry point.
And in sports, Manchester United manager Louis van Gaal says his ambition is to bring the Premier League title back to Old Trafford. United treasured promoted QPR 4-0 at Old Trafford on Sunday to give the Dutchman his first win since taking over in the summer. Van Gaal, who won domestic titles in his first season in charge of both Barcelona and Bayern Munich, has been set a target of a top 3 finish by Chief Executive Ed Woodward. After scoring only twice in the first 4 games under Van Gaal, Manchester United produced a much improved display against QPR. The victory featured Angel Di Maria and Ander Herrera's first goal for the club, while Wayne Rooney and Juan Mata also scored. Di Maria had a hand in 3 goals as well as getting on the score sheets. Although he was not immune from criticism from Van Gaal, believes there is more to come from his side. And that's it on the news on the hour. Please do join me at the top of the hour for more. I am Sabena Izuku, and thank you very much indeed for watching.